Hey there, Bracy here. So, just a quick update. There's, well, all the world leaders are meeting at the G7 summit. That, actually, I think they just finished meeting. I think they're flying back now to their respective homes. Um, yeah, I don't feel like that really did anything. We've got burning rainforests. We've got a global garbage problem. We've got pollution problems. We've got a lot of problems. We're actually at that point where it is necessary for us to start talking about sorry, I got something in my eye. That itch, allergies. Oh man, driving me nuts. Sorry if I look all funky, but what can I do? So we're at that point where it's actually time to start talking about a global government, because we have issues that we actually have to respect people's boundaries, but also respect the fact that people's actions in other parts of the world are going to directly affect us for the rest of humanity, or at least for the rest of humanity's time on this planet. If something happens with a nuclear reactor going down and poisoning our air, poisoning our water, it's not a small thing anymore. Like, we're all so completely dependent on each other's actions. So unfortunately, that means that we have to do something about that. We actually have to communicate and work on seeing the value in other people's perspective, which is really hard because we've been working so hard in the opposite way. We've been so individualistic, so materialistic, so materialistic, and I'm not talking about everybody else and not me. I mean myself as well. Like, it's all of us. It's a problem that we all have to face. And it starts by learning how to communicate and really trying very hard to believe that the other person is coming from a place of, honesty. That's not true all the time, but that's the only way to operate, or else we end up in a worse spot. So anyway, I know I shouldn't kill you all with the downside. Today I wanted to talk about the next big VR headset to come into my possession. It is the Oculus DK2. Sorry about the wires. This is just kind of how they're put up there. So the Oculus DK2, it was the very first computer-based HMD I've ever owned. And by computer-based, I mean it relied on a computer to operate. And when I got this bad boy, I made an investment. I was lucky enough after getting the first Samsung Gear VR, which I talked about in the last one. I actually had purchased that in order to entice an angel investor to invest in me and to invest in the R&D that I was going to go into when it came to virtual reality. And with that investment came this headset and then the computer that I bought to run it. Now, I did some serious research on, like, what's a good computer to do it with. Since I was traveling into the city a lot, I wanted my development computer to be a laptop because, well, I needed to travel with the computer to develop with it. And so I got the biggest, beefiest, hardcorest laptop that existed at the time, which was an Alien M15 or something 15 at the time. And I found out after I got it that despite it having all the specs, the proper specs, the way that laptop was created, it didn't allow for me to utilize the graphics card independently of the motherboard or something. It was weird. It had some weird kind of bridge connector that didn't allow me to actually utilize the full power of the graphics card when it came to utilizing the HMD. So I had to then purchase an extension, graphics card extender that allowed me to plug in what I got at the time was a NVIDIA GeForce 980 Ti, which was a pretty hefty card. In fact, I think it was one of the best back in the day, besides the Titan, which I didn't have the money for it at the time. Despite, well, I mean, with the investment, I wasn't going to just put it all in one graphics card. So the cool thing about that was that I was able to use that laptop mobily, but unfortunately, because of the graphics extender, I could only actually do the Oculus DK2 use in a home setting or an office setting or wherever I set up the whole desktop setup. Which, that's c'est la vie. Actually, I just happened to use that whole setup for this. This was a hackathon. In fact, my very first hackathon, the Hearst Immersive Hack, and I got to do really cool things with it. I'm sorry if my eyes are looking really weird. They're super itchy. It's been a really irritating last week and a half. My allergies just snapped on. So anyway, this guy was cool, and in fact, for the last few years, this had been my very favorite headset to use to develop. Why? Because it was just so easy to just pop on. I was in there. Now, the positional tracking, unlike the CV1, the very first Oculus that was released via Kickstarter, this guy had position tracking. He had a little camera outside of it, and it could, track where it was. It would stop tracking as soon as you turned a full 360 around, but it was still positional, and it was great to just dive in and get working on projects. Because once you solve the movement solution, and once Oculus started releasing their DK, their SDK, so you could utilize it in Unity, it was really easy to just dive in and create whatever it is you came up with. And very quickly, I wanted to move into moving in virtual spaces. Once I found out that you can move inside of VR, I wanted to utilize that more and more. And I felt very hindered when it came to utilizing a controller, because ultimately I knew that while that works well for me, there are so many other people out there that doesn't work for. So then I set out to find a good alternative for that. But the DK2, excellent headset. It's the first real VR headset to make it feel like, I mean, for me at least, to see the potential in computer-based VR headsets, because up until that point I had only been utilizing mobile headsets like the Cardboard or the Samsung Gear VR. So this was the first one that I got to actually push up the graphics, see what was possible, and it was exciting. But that was only the beginning of the journey. There's so many cooler things that were on the way, and I just didn't even know it. I mean, I had a feeling because, the industry was growing, but couldn't have possibly known how cool it was going to get from there. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I hope all is well, and, stay conscious.